Start your day with the great taste of Blackout Coffee. Family-owned, premium coffee, fresh roasted, and shipped out within 48 hours of roasting. It's a great American company. Go to blackoutcoffee.com, promo code PDB for 20% off your first-time purchase. It's Wednesday, 31 July. Welcome to the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. I'm Mike Baker, your eyes and ears on the world stage. Let's get briefed. First, in a major development concerning the war in Gaza, Hamas's chief political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, has been killed in a targeted strike inside the Iranian capital of Tehran. Also, as international outrage continues to build over Venezuela's fraudulent presidential election and violence on the ground spreads, well, dictator Nicolás Maduro is digging in his heels, arresting opposition leaders and vowing to crush the protest movement. I mean, as they say, dictator's gonna dictate. But first, our afternoon spotlight. Hamas's chief political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, was assassinated in Iran's capital of Tehran early on Wednesday morning in a major blow to the terrorist group, throwing ceasefire talks into question and fueling concerns of an Iranian intervention in the war. His death, particularly because it occurred on Iranian territory, triggered widespread condemnation in the Arab world, with Iranian leaders threatening severe punishment for Israel. Now, there's no word as to whether the Arab world also condemns Iran's sponsorship of Hamas and other terrorist groups that carry out the Iranian regime's objectives in the region. Anxieties are now high that the situation could further devolve and engulf the region in a wider conflict. It remains unclear how the killing was carried out, and so far, no state or party has come forward to take credit, though early suspicion in the Middle East fell on Israel, according to a report from Reuters. Israel has stayed relatively quiet since the news broke, noting they don't respond to foreign reports. They have a history of targeted assassinations inside Iran and Syria on key players in Iran's so-called axis of resistance. It's an axis of terror. They're a collection of militant Islamic terrorists such as Hamas and Hezbollah. Ismail Haniyeh led Hamas's political operations from exile in Qatar, where he lived an opulent lifestyle facilitated by a personal fortune estimated at $4 billion with a B US dollars. That would be $4 billion stolen by Haniyeh and his Hamas leadership cohorts, stolen from funds supposedly provided to help the Palestinian people. Now, let me just repeat that. Haniyeh and the other top leaders of the Iranian-sponsored Hamas have spent years stuffing cash in their pockets and living the life of the rich and famous at the expense of the Palestinian people. He was in Tehran for the inauguration of new Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, who was sworn in Tuesday to chants of death to America and death to Israel. And you would think, after all these years, they'd come up with some new chants. The Hamas chief attended the ceremony alongside fellow terrorist leaders representing the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Yemen's Houthis, and Lebanon's Hezbollah. It really was a gathering of the evil league of evil. At one point, Haniyeh was seen hugging the new Iranian president. What was meant to be a show of unity and force for the self-proclaimed axis of resistance turned into an embarrassing blow to Iran's regional interests. All eyes are now on Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who indicated on Wednesday that Iran would retaliate. In a post on X, Khamenei said, quote, "The criminal terrorist Zionist regime martyred our dear guest in the territory and has caused our grief, but it has also prepared the ground for a severe punishment," end quote. Now, as I mentioned, Israel has not directly commented on the death of Haniyeh. However, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant did say they are prepared for all scenarios, but they don't wish to escalate the war. The former head of the Iran branch for Israeli military intelligence told the Wall Street Journal, quote, "We are on the verge of a large-scale escalation." Officials in Qatar, who have been mediating ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas, condemned Haniyeh's killing and said it jeopardized the ongoing negotiations, which had been proving, well, with cautious optimism, fruitful. Haniyeh had been a key player in these discussions, reportedly taking a more moderate position than Yahya Sinwar, Hamas's chief inside Gaza. According to mediators, he was advocating an end to fighting in an attempt to ensure the long-term survival of Hamas. So yeah, what he was doing was supporting the ceasefire in order to maintain Hamas as a viable terror organization and, of course, his own personal cash cow. Now, that being said, a senior Hamas official said Wednesday that the terror outfit would not be changing its main goals in ceasefire talks, despite the death of Haniyeh. The official said, quote, "The absence of one comrade or another does not change the movement's compass on any issues," end quote. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, meanwhile, mostly sidestepped questions about the assassination at an event in Singapore. Blinken said, quote, "All I can tell you right now is that nothing takes away from the importance of getting to the ceasefire. We have been working to try to prevent the conflict from spreading." The death of Haniyeh came less than 24 hours after Israel said they killed Hezbollah's most senior military commander in Lebanon's capital of Beirut. Israeli officials said the commander served as a close advisor to Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah and was responsible for the attack in the Golan Heights on Saturday that killed 12 children and teenagers on a soccer field. Coming up after the break, as international outrage mounts over Venezuela's fraudulent presidential election and violence on the ground spreads, dictator Nicolás Maduro is digging in his heels, arresting opposition leaders and vowing to crush the protest movement. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Afternoon Bulletin. The dictator of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, is doubling down on his dubious claims of victory in Sunday's presidential election, vowing to crush a burgeoning protest movement against election results that cement his grip on power, despite evidence that he lost by a wide margin. In a country battered by political repression and an economic collapse that's pushed over 80% of the population into poverty in recent years, the latest elections have been a flashpoint. Demonstrators demanded that the Maduro regime release the official tally sheets for each of the 30,000 voting machines across the country, only to be ignored by the regime and labeled as violent agitators intent on orchestrating a coup. The situation has become dire, with the people of Venezuela taking to the streets to express their anger over nearly 3 decades of socialist rule. Groups marched through the capital streets of Caracas on Monday and Tuesday, shouting against Maduro and tearing down and trampling on the dictator's campaign posters. The Maduro regime met the protests with violent force, of course they did, with riot police on motorcycles and armored vehicles shooting tear gas into the crowds. According to local human rights groups, at least 16 people have been killed so far in the clashes. The Maduro regime also began arresting opposition leaders, including former deputy of the National Assembly, Freddy Superlano. On Tuesday, allies of Maduro also called for the arrest of Maduro's opponent, 74-year-old Edmundo Gonzalez, as well as opposition leader Maria Corina Machado. As we reported yesterday on the PDB, the presidential election is widely viewed as fraudulent, both within Venezuela and abroad, and Venezuelan opposition leaders have presented concrete evidence of the corruption. Gonzalez and Machado said Tuesday that they had obtained more than 73% of the tally sheets from Sunday's election, which show Gonzalez with more than twice as many votes as Maduro. That would be normally considered a win. They compiled the data into a publicly accessible database that Venezuelans can use to review a scanned tally sheet from their voting station showing how many votes went to each candidate. Despite this, the regime-controlled Election Council has declared Maduro the winner, and the opposition and international community will frankly have few options to remedy the situation. The nation's military, likely the only force capable of ousting Maduro, appears firmly on his side. The White House faces a dilemma in political intervention, given limited leverage as Maduro consolidates power across military, judiciary, and media sectors. In addition, Maduro has retained power with support from key global allies, and here they are: China, Russia, Iran, Cuba, Honduras, Nicaragua, which bolsters his position against growing internal and external pressures. Now, I, for one, am shocked to know that China, Russia, Iran, and Cuba are all supporting a hardline socialist dictator. Just didn't see that coming. Restoring sanctions on Venezuelan oil could have economic repercussions for America, particularly affecting gas prices in the U.S. during an election year. Now, there is as much likelihood that the Biden-Harris administration will do anything that could raise gas prices 3 months before the U.S. presidential election as there is that Maduro will suddenly repent and admit that he stole the election. Neither is going to happen. But doing nothing greenlights another 6 years of Maduro in power, expanding the exodus of Venezuelans and exasperating the migrant crisis on America's southern border. It is, as they say, a conundrum, a pickle, as nearly 8 million have already fled the country in recent years, according to regional analysts. The situation remains volatile, with the regime showing no signs of relinquishing power peacefully, risking a further descent, of course, into chaos. Maduro's regime remains determined to suppress what it calls a coup attempt, with high-ranking officials vowing no dialogue or forgiveness for the opposition. And that, my friends, is the PDB Afternoon Bulletin for Wednesday, 31 July. Oh, look at that. We just about made it through another month. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. Of course, to listen to the show ad-free, well, become a premium member of the President's Daily Brief by visiting pdbpremium.com. And as you know, the PDB is available on all podcast platforms and our YouTube channel at President's Daily Brief. I'm Mike Baker. I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool.